In this video, we are going to create a personal budget for the year. Let's look at some of the features that we're going to be covering. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to start my budget out with a title, My Personal Budget. It's going to be for 2018. And I'm going to drop down a couple of rows and I'm going to start with my income. So I'm going to type in income. And you want to list all your income that you have. So if you have one job, or if you have two jobs, or if you have a side job, you do some freelance work, or if you're tracking you and your significant other. So I'm just going to list two jobs here. Then I'm going to drop down again. And now I'm going to start listing my expenditures. Now notice as I'm typing text into a cell, it is appearing in my formula bar. You can type from the formula bar, but it's much easier just to type directly into the cell. Now if you go back and you need to edit a cell, then it is easier sometimes to use the formula bar. So let's say that I want to change this job 2 to job 3 for an example. To do that, I can double click within that cell, or I can come up here to the formula bar. And actually I won't change that to 3, we'll just continue on. Okay, and now I'm just going to kind of make up some expenditures here. Now when you're putting together your budget, you want to be as precise as possible and list every single expenditure that you do have for the month. But I'm just going to do this for time's sake. I'm going to list 10 different expenditures. Now notice how my text is overlapping the column. So what I want to do here is I want to widen the column. There's a couple of ways that I can do this. I'm going to place my cursor between the A and the B in my column heading area. The column heading area is the gray area. So I'm going to get this two-sided arrow and I can click, hold, and drag to widen my column. I can also double click and that will auto-fit the contents within that column. So it'll auto-fit the column to the widest set of characters within that column. But I'm going to go ahead and make mine just a little bit smaller. Okay, because I don't care if my title here, my personal budget, overlaps or not. So now I'm going to throw in some numbers for my income. So what am I making? Let's just say we're going to keep these as some pretty basic numbers. I'm making $2,000, and then maybe I do some freelance work and I'm making $500 a month with that. So what I'm going to do here is for my expenditures for January, and I'm going to go ahead and type in January, but I want a space here. I want an extra row between my 2008 and then where I type in January. So I'm going to insert a row, and to do that, I'm going to place my cursor in the row heading area, and that's the gray area, so right on this 3. Right click and insert, and now I have a new row and I'm going to type in January. So what are my expenditures? Again, I'm just going to put in some very basic numbers here. As I put these numbers in, I notice that I forgot to put in my groceries. I have to eat every month, so I'm going to insert a row. And to do that, in my row heading area, I want it directly underneath my mortgage, so I'm going to select row 11, right-click, and insert. Anytime you insert a row, it will always go above. So I'm going to put in groceries, and that's going to be $250. I need to rearrange some numbers here. Okay, now that I have those in, I want to have some totals. And I'm going to put totals right here underneath my income. And I want totals at the bottom of my expenditures. And notice that I've already typed in totals once, so it picked up that I have it up here and it automatically filled that in for me. So I just have to hit enter at this point. Now again, I want a little bit of space in here, so I want to add a row above expenditures. So again, I'm going to right click and insert. I like that, having a little bit more space. And I'm going to go ahead and use autosum to total up my income. Autosum is located under the Home tab in your editing group. And here's autosum. So let's do it slow the first time. I'm going to click on it once. Notice the marching ants around my cells that's going to be calculated. So Excel automatically detected that there were 2 cells above where I'm putting my total. So it automatically selected those. So I have equal, my function, and then B6 through B7. The colon means through. I'm going to hit enter, and there's my total. And I'm going to do the same thing for my expenditures total. So again, this time I'm just going to double click on autosum. Automatically puts in my total for me. Now I want to see the difference between my income and my expenditures. I want to subtract my expenditures from my income. So I'm just going to type in difference. Now this time I'm going to have to use a simple formula because again I'm subtracting my expenditures from my totals. So anytime that you input a function or a formula, it always starts with an equal sign. So I'm going to start equal. Now I'm going to click on the cell reference B8. That's where my income total is. And notice how I have the marching ants around this cell and it automatically plugged in B8 for me. Now I could have typed in B8, but it is really a good practice to click on the cell that you want in the formula. This eliminates any data entry error. And once you start working with larger spreadsheets, you'll really appreciate this. Okay, so B8 minus my expenditures, which are in B21. So equal B8 minus B21. Notice we don't have a function here. I don't have equal sum because this is just a simple formula. I'm just taking one cell minus another cell. Hit enter and there's my difference right there. Looks like I have $745 left over at the end of the month. Now I'm going to do a little bit of number formatting here to spruce this up a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and select this range. I'm going to select B6 through B23. Now to select a range, you simply place your cursor kind of in the middle of the cell, click, hold, and drag down. I have that range selected. On my Home tab, in my number group, I have the accounting style, and I have the comma style. So I'm going to select the comma style, and what that does is it puts 2 decimal places in, gives me a comma, but I think I also want to see a $sign, so I could change this. I don't like seeing $signs on all my numbers here, so I think just for my totals, I'm going to apply the accounting style. So I'm going to drop down here to this total, and then for my difference, make that total also. Okay, so this is looking pretty good, but we are supposed to be making a budget for January through December. Now, most of the time, your yearly budget, your expenses are going to be pretty much the same month to month. There are going to be some things that change, like maybe your grocery, your entertainment, your fuel costs, and things like that. But I'm just going to start out with all of the numbers the same, just for simplicity's sake, for January through December. Okay, so we've plugged in January. So what we're going to do now is use the autofill feature, and this is going to be quite the time saver for us. So I'm going to select my range B4 through B23, and notice in the lower right hand corner of my range is this tiny little green square. When I put my cursor over it, my cursor changes into a skinny plus sign. That's how I know that I have a hold of the autofill handle. So now I'm going to click, hold, and drag across. And now I have through December. So see how quick that was? Now I have my whole month done practically. Well, but what do we see going on here? What are these pound signs? All that means is that the column is not wide enough to display a number. Now text will always overlap a column, but numbers will not. So if I click on one of these cells, I can see in my formula bar that the formula is there. It's just in my spreadsheet, it's not showing the number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the columns C through M, and to do that I place my cursor in the column heading area, click, hold, and drag, and I can either double click to auto fit or I can just click, hold, and drag. Now I can actually see all my numbers. Okay, so our budget is almost done. Look at that. So if you did want to change a few things around, let's say that maybe you have a big family reunion in February, so you're going to be feeding everyone. This is going to be a huge grocery bill. I'm going to change that to 500, and notice how my totals automatically change because I have my formulas in there. But let's spruce this up a little bit, and let's start applying maybe some borders and some shading, and I'm going to make a few things bold to really stand out. I'm going to take January through December. I'm going to make that bold. I think I want my incomes to be bold, or my totals to be bold. Income, expenditures, totals, and difference. Okay, makes that stand out a little bit more. I'm also going to take January through December, and I want to center those. And I think I'm going to apply borders. So I'm going to select this range, my income range, A4 through M8, and I'm going to apply all borders. So under my Home tab in my font grouping, this icon right here is my borders. Click the drop-down arrow, and I want all borders. So don't confuse the grid lines within a spreadsheet with your borders. And I think I'm going to do the same thing with my expenditures. I'm going to select all borders. Now because I've already chosen it, it's still available to me. So I'm just going to click on that, and I'm going to do the same thing with difference. Okay, that's looking pretty good, but let's add a little bit more flair here. So above my totals, I'm going to go ahead and select B7 through M7, click my drop-down arrow for my borders again, and this time I want a bottom double border. So now you can see that. I'm going to do the same thing for my expenditure totals. Okay, let's apply some shading so things will stand out even more. Again, I'm going to take January through December. Under my Home tab, my font grouping, the icon that looks like a paintbrush, I'm going to click the drop-down arrow. And how about this nice light green color? And now notice, as I hover over the colors, I do get a preview within my worksheet. I'm going to apply the same color in my column area. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Now I'm just going to go ahead and make this bold. 2008, I don't like how that's lined up, so I'm going to left align that. Maybe I'll make that bold. My totals, I'm going to go ahead and right align just so that stands out a little bit more. But you know what I could do instead of just right align, let me go ahead and left align that again, is I do have, this is how you tab within a cell in Excel. You increase indent. So let's just increase indent a couple of times. That looks pretty good. It almost looks like it's centered, but it's not. I'm just tabbing within the cell. Now, the last thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and change my worksheet tab name. By default, it's Sheet 1. But if I double click on that, notice how it's selected and my cursor is within the tab. I could also right click and rename. Same thing. And so I'm just going to call this 2018. Okay, now you have a very simple personal budget to start using for the year, and hopefully you've learned a few things in Excel. Thanks for watching.